So the intention is to come fully into the present moment. Fully is a bit abstract. To what degree we're ever in the present is not readily quantifiable. And I doubt actually if our conscious awareness is ever fully in the present, as far as our self-identity, human consciousness. I imagine that we would have no memory, perhaps, in that. But the intention is to come more fully, more into the present moment, as far as the focus being here and now, and not whatever was going on just before this or what's going to come next. And I believe that the more we can be in the present moment, the more resourcefulness we'll have, the more power, to act in the world, the more wisdom, the more insight, the more creativity. We focus and we expand at the same time. I like the image of the symbol, the circumpunct. It's the glyph for the sun, where there is a ring and a point in the center of it. So it represents that central focus of the point, but also this expansive circumference, this sphere of awareness. And there's also a holographic nature to it, where the entirety is encompassed in the point. And that's the sensation I get as I come more into the present. I use the sensations of my body, because the body is in the present. Our mind can flit around past, present, future. It's usually in the past or the future. Of course, it's happening in the present, but it's projecting itself into the memories and the projections of the future. And that's a kind of disassociation. Yes, it is the past in the present and the future in the present. And if we remember that, again, we can come back to the present. Because whatever projection or imagining that we're having, we are having it in the present. So it's actually not happening in the past, and it's not happening in the future. It is happening in the present. And this is how we navigate timelines and parallel realities. We can shift these timelines by monitoring and reframing our thoughts about the past and our thoughts about the future. Because the fact is that they're not true. They're merely perceptions. Research has shown that people revise the past. We emphasize and de-emphasize different things based on our biases. It's a confirmation of our beliefs. And self-awareness and self-empowerment allows us to shape our thoughts and our beliefs. Our beliefs are just the thoughts that we continue to think and affirm. And they create a trajectory. They set us on a certain timeline and a certain course. And so it benefits us to be mindful of that, to cultivate certain thoughts, and to let go of others. It's so easy to be infected by the thoughts of others, thoughts of the world. The natural tendency of the mind is to gather information. And it's fed to us nowadays. There's no shortage of it. But none of it is the absolute truth. And we need to examine how that information affects us and if it's serving us. What is the benefit? Is it just distracting us from ourselves? From the things that we want to avoid about ourselves? Because the things that we want to avoid about ourselves are the very things that we do need to pay attention to if we want to improve our lives. We're busy thinking that there's just some information out here that will improve my life if I have it. But that's erroneous. We've already come across all the information likely that we need to take the next steps in our life. However, we've lost those details in the myriad of details. So we need to take the time to reflect, and in doing so, a pattern emerges. We see the flecks of gold in the riverbed. When we take the time to allow our minds to settle, which does take some time and practice. It takes less time the more practice. When we do let that water settle and clear, we still our minds, we can more readily see those flecks of gold in the riverbed. Our inner wisdom points them out, reminds us of what's important to us, reminds us of that thing that we thought maybe years ago. That thing that was important to us before we got so distracted. We remember ourselves. Before we got so polluted, before we got so disconnected and chopped up into pieces, before we got so injected with other people's agendas and ideals. I think perhaps there's no more important thing in the world for human beings to do than to self-reflect. To take the time to slow down. To let the waters of our consciousness to clear. Yes, in that process, all sorts of ghosts and demons appear. These shadowy elements that are puppeting us from behind the curtain. Most people are possessed. Most people are not living their own lives. They're like leaves in a storm. They're doing what they've been told to do. Or they're trying to, at least. Unconsciously bouncing around, grasping, searching, and causing much pain and suffering to themselves and others around them in the process. They are part of this great agitation of samsara. This agitation that breaks everything down. And humans get broken down in the process. They age and succumb to this battering. Meanwhile, within them is peace and truth. But it's subtle. It's all pervasive, and so they are like fish in water. They don't see it. And as we're trying to find ourselves, to find our core of peace and truth, often we will still get battered as others try and micromanage us. They may see our light, and try and control it. Try and take a piece of it. There is such a fine line between manipulating others and having a sort of covalent bond like an infinity symbol. Instead of this kind of comorbid attachment, this co-vampirism, that seems to be the predominant kind of relationship in our world. We can meet others with integrity. We can retain ourselves and our peace. And meet others. We can meet where our boundaries touch. And maybe there is even some intersection and overlap. And that is a sacred area. That area where two circles intersect is called the Vesica Pisces. And it's a seed shape. It's a candle flame shape. It's the vulva shape. It's a container for birth of something. It's a doorway. Without mindfulness, demons can come into the world. In codependent relationships, darkness is brought into the world and into other people's lives. This is evident in so many aspects in the world where we've created pollution, we've created disease, we've created dysfunction. When there is no sacred joining, but instead a desecration of another, such things have been normalized. I've heard this term, dark empath, and I think I fit this category. To be honest, I haven't studied up on what the definition is. But I think what it is somebody who's been observing and listening and feeling the impacts of the lack of mindfulness in the world. And I've taken on the responsibility of holding, of containing the demons. The poison. And I think I can do this because I know that it's not specifically mine. I think I can do this because I see through this behavior. Perhaps I've already conquered it. I can bear witness to it without it destroying me. I can feel it. And I can hold it. And I'm learning how to digest it, how to process it, how to turn it into something else. And in that, it is offering the world something. It seems like it would be nice to offer karmic retribution. Some Shiva or Kali-like destruction. Some karmic simulacrum. But instead, it's an arrow of truth. Pointed straight into the belly of those who continue to feign ignorance. Those who willfully continue to be vampires. Because it suits them, because it benefits them, and because they have no empathy. These people do deserve a karmic retribution. And one that will force them to their knees. One that will demand that they atone, as we all must do. We all must accept our sins. We all must accept where we have missed the mark. It is an unavoidable balancing. We are all agents of the divine, and we all have different work. And I believe that my work is in part to administer some karmic retribution. If only to point to the truth. If only to hold up a mirror. If only to show the demonic forces of the world, so that we may defeat them, so that we may expel them, so that we may pull back the curtain on the vampiric puppet masters. And I say, we also need to look within ourselves, where we have capitulated, where we have given our power away, where we have supplied these vampires where we have perpetuated the systemic pain and abuse. This is the power of no. And it is equally as necessary as the power of yes, which is the power of life. The power of no is invoked force, is the sword, is discernment, is the cutting of the ties that bind us. Our power is the power to say yes and the power to say no. And this is how we create the world. This is how we create. This is how we create everything. This is how we create our own personal world and the world that we live in. No can mean, no, I'm not giving my energy to social media. I'm not spending my precious moments of the day feeding that beast. I hope we evolve beyond it, yet retain a way of sharing our creations, sharing ourselves with each other. Everything is nuanced. Everything has a foundation in subtlety. Yes and no are black and white, and there is times for that. But that's couched in a sea of gray. The black and white is the binary, and the gray is the electricity that hums and throbs and fluctuates. Like cymatic geometric forms, constantly changing, fractals within fractals. Impossible to interpret without inner guidance. A connection with our source within us can show us what things mean, what's important to us. And then ultimately, we make that choice, decide on the 1 or the 0, the black or the white, the yes or the no. That's what makes things real. That commitment. Of course, there's a fear that we'll make a mistake, that we'll choose the wrong thing. But perhaps that's because we hadn't enough focus. We had enough self-discipline to really listen to our wisdom. It's more important to let go of the outcome and create space for the cause, for the impulse, for the still silent voice within us that will always guide us to the best course of action if we're listening. We're so out of practice with this. It's been beaten out of us. Children are able to connect with this, but their ability to translate in the world, to navigate the world, is often obfuscated because there's so many bullshit rules made up by demon-riddled people. I myself have programming that makes me feel guilty for saying no, that brings up feelings of I should be nicer. But that niceness is an inauthenticity. When the impulse within me wants to say, no, get out of my face and don't ask me again, I don't need to give you a reason. I don't need to explain myself. It's just no. Now go away. And yes, there's a tone of anger and hostility. Yes. Because that's the truth of the matter. There is anger and hostility. Held, experienced within those who have been preyed upon and treated poorly for no reason. Other than that they were open, trusting, vulnerable. And yes, perhaps it makes sense, ultimately. They hadn't developed the wisdom of discernment and self-authority to stand up for themselves, just like a cell with a cell wall. Just like we see in nature that things have thorns, things have poison, things have tough skin and ways of defending themselves. Sharp teeth, sensitive eyes and ears, feelers, sensors. And if we're going to maintain and cultivate integrity within ourselves, we need to honor what those sensors, what those intuitions are telling us, and not be afraid to bare our teeth, not be afraid to defend ourselves. Not be afraid to be the deliverer of karmic retribution. Perhaps that's our role. We should always be very careful about this, very mindful, because there are those who would co-opt it. I see it quite widely where there's this co-opting about weaponizing the dark feminine. Yes, it's true that many women have been victimized and treated quite poorly. However, that accumulated venom needs to be targeted precisely. I believe there's an intention to redirect that away from those who actually deserve it, back onto the more innocent ones. Because that's what they do. The satanic orchestrators are always co-opting the energy. They're bending the karmic rules to delay their deserving punishment, their inevitable atonement. And they sacrifice the innocent to quench the thirst of Kali, of Shiva, of the balancing of the universe. They hold this world in imbalance to serve themselves. They are not the highest authority. And so, the balancing is inevitable. And emergent within the universe are these balancing forces. Manifestations of this balancing will respond to their avoidance of the balancing. The karmic retribution will seep out of every nook and cranny and overwhelm them, no matter what tricks they pull. This is the power of nature. This is the eternal force of the divine feminine. And the divine masculine serves this purpose as well. As the emergent action out of this great sea of consciousness. I believe as we awaken, we take on more responsibility as being agents of the universe. As we heal ourselves and atone, which by that I mean at one-ment where we remember ourselves and we come more fully into our wholeness. We take on more power and more responsibility. Yet still we have a choice what we do with that. Do we serve an illusionary self? Or do we serve the greater good, the soul of the universe? Nature, the planet, goodness. Yes, perhaps the shadow, the darkness, is part of the grand design. But I believe it's to awaken us, to sharpen us, to strengthen us and increase us. So we must respond to it. As human beingness is about responsibility, our ability to do and be, to be and to do, in time and space. And that doing is the waking up to our being and playing that out in the world. And there's a finiteness and there's an urgency. Unfortunately, we are part of nature's nourishment and buoyancy. And so we have these periods of rest where we sleep. And we can also withdraw into the stillness within us so that we gather up the light and the power lying within us. So that when our focus returns to the world, we can be and do and take action in time and space and shine our light where the shadows dominate. The shadows have dominated our world and sought to destroy the light, to enslave the light, which is insane, which is ridiculous. But in this inverted world, it seems possible. And great suffering and tribulation results. This is not meant to be a prolonged lesson. It's meant to be a lesson that is woken up from. And we are at that time right now of defeating the shadows and waking up. The alarm clock has been going off for a while. We're late for work. It's time to wake up.